In the past, there were some explosions, but it wasn't this bad.
It makes me feel small. It ruined my life. I want everyone to be careful.
Even if I can disarm just one landmine, I can save a person or a buffalo.
In northern Shan state, locals and activists say there's been an increase in casualties from landmines since the 1027 operation. And mine clearance is slow, prompting at least one local to start doing it himself. Hello and welcome to Doh Athan, a weekly podcast about human rights stories from Myanmar. It's brought to you by Fondation Hirondelle. This episode is produced by Shwe Phee Myay journalist Mai Ru Pa. Names and voices may have been changed to protect contributors. Doh Athan and her husband Uso Win had been without work for months because of the fighting in northern Shan state. With 5 children to support, they were happy to resume working on 16th of March. This was on a road repair project between Kuk Kai town and Landmine village. The very next day, as Doh Athan recounts, their happiness was shattered.
I was with him that day to fix the road. We finished paving the first one but ran out of rocks, so we moved on to the next section. While we were working, he got out of the car, came over to us and asked about the time, to see if it was time for lunch. It was only 10:20 in the morning. He then walked ahead of us, and that's when he stepped on the landmine. His legs were severed and we couldn't find them.
Uso Win was rushed to hospital for treatment and had an operation, but not right away. He died the next day.
He reached the hospital around 11 but didn't get into the operating room until 3:30. Maybe he lost too much blood. It was really flowing out.
Landmines have long been a lethal feature of the Shan landscape, with its history of conflicts involving different ethnic groups and the Myanmar military. But activists say casualties have increased since Operation 1027 was launched last October by the Three Brotherhood Alliance. That's the Doh Athan National Liberation Army, TNLA, with the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army and the Arakan Army. Between 1st of January and 23rd of May, 7 people died and 36 were injured from unexploded ordnance in northern Shan state. 16 of those casualties were just in Kuk Kai township. Loi Chi Sanga of the Doh Athan Women's Organisation says casualties are now happening with frightening regularity.
In the past, there were some explosions, but it wasn't this bad. Now, during and after the operation, it's happening all the time. In certain places, we're seeing 3 to 4 people getting hurt or killed every week. There are explosions everywhere.
Most fighting ceased in January when the alliance got control of most of northern Shan state. But who knows how many landmines were laid in their attempt to win territory and the Tatmadaws' desperate defence of that land. And innocent people are now paying the price, including thousands who were displaced by the fighting but have returned home since the ceasefire. Like Doh Athan from Pansay village near Kuk Kai town. She and her family of 4 had to flee when fighting during Operation 1027 came close to their village. But they returned home in late January. On 12th of March, Doh Athan lost her buffalo and went looking for it in a field near the village. She stepped on a mine and lost her right leg below the knee.
I used to go there in the past. I couldn't see anything as it was buried. I don't even know how I stepped on one. The spot where it happened is where the Burmese soldiers often went to fetch water. It's pretty close to the SAC's camp.
Many of these incidents have happened near the SAC's former camps, and many locals blame SAC for these latest mines. But most groups in the region have a history of using anti-personnel landmines during conflict. In fact, back in 2019, the TNLA was reportedly asking locals for compensation if any livestock set off one of their mines. Doh Athan is a neighbour of Doh Athan. He's a young livestock farmer. He says he watched Burmese soldiers planting the mines near his house. Even though he's had no training, he decided to start clearing the mines himself because he lost 3 of his buffaloes. He says he's now cleared nearly 80 mines.
The Burmese soldiers, they planted them in front of me. I learned from them. There were cattle around and they got hit. That's why I decided to disarm them. If I don't do anything, cattle and people from the village will eventually get hurt. Even if I can disarm just one landmine, I can save a person or a buffalo.
The use of landmines violates the most fundamental human right, the right to life. It's also against international laws and conventions. Sadly, Myanmar has not signed the 1997 Mine Ban Treaty, but the use of mines is still unlawful. The treaty doesn't apply to non-state armed groups, but the TNLA's political wing signed a deed of commitment by the organisation Geneva Call banning anti-personnel mines in 2007. The TNLA now controls Kutkai Township. Spokesperson Loy U says during Operation 1027, the TNLA only laid mines around their outpost to protect it. She says they're trying to clear mines laid by SAC forces and have deployed 100 people to do this. But they can't work as fast as local people might like because they don't have enough equipment and they don't always have the right equipment.
The mines we're currently dealing with were planted by the military council. Our detectors cannot spot some mines because the military council used new technology to plant those mines and handmade mines. So there are many hidden mines, especially in the area where the military council stationed its bases.
The clearance of landmines can't come quickly enough for people like Doh Athan. After her husband's death, she's struggling to support their 5 children. She's also further in debt now because her husband's funeral cost 45 lakhs. That's around $2,000 at official rates.
I am depending on others because I don't have a job. Things are tougher now than when he was around. I still haven't paid back what I borrowed for the funeral, and it's been hard ever since. No job, debts from before when he was still alive. It's all piling up.
Before her accident, Doh Athan was the main breadwinner in her family of 4, growing vegetables. Now she can't even walk. When she stepped on a landmine while looking for her buffalo, she lost the lower part of her right leg. But her left leg was also damaged. She's still getting treatment for this wound in the hope that they can avoid amputation.
I used to sell vegetables at the market. It didn't earn a lot, but now I can't do anything because of that landmine. I have to rely on my relatives. One gives me rice, another gives me paddy, and someone else gives me salt.
Before the military coup, there were a growing number of mine risk education programs for local people. But activists say this has shrunk since the coup, while the number of mine risks has increased. Doh Athan doesn't want anyone to experience what she had to go through, so she's urging all civilians to be careful of landmines.
I would like to remind people not to go to places where landmines might be buried. I was injured and hurt, and it cost me so much to get treatment too. It makes me feel small. It ruined my life. I want everyone to be careful.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Doh Athan. We'd welcome your feedback on social media. This project on human rights reporting is supported by Fondation Hirondelle with the help of our donors. You can listen to our podcast via the Doh Athan Facebook page. They can also be found on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes and Spotify. You can also listen every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. and Sunday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. on Voice of America Radio. Please tune in again next week.